All right. Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
Morning, sir.
Hi. Morning.
Morning, sir.
Okay. Judging from those two voices, you sound well awake and ready to tackle the day.
Yes.
All right.
Carol, speak for yourself. This is not the vibe.
Okay then, okay.
Well, I'm guessing that let me see. Musa, you're hoping that Musa you were able to attend the CSA assembly, right? And those of you who stayed to the end, you guys got a little prize. What was that prize? Let me see who stayed to the end.
The Access Journal.
Ah, an Access Journal. Good. A piece of the history of CSA in your hands, huh? All right. So how is the classwork going? Did you guys manage to figure it out?
Yeah, sir. I was able to start it last night.
Okay, cool.
Oh, sir,
And
Sir, why you
say again?
I had one issue though. I had finished the exercise 5, but when I tried to upload the file, it was saying something about server rejected or something like that. So I haven't been able to actually upload the thing to submit the thing. I don't know what's going on. It's still saying it now. Like I just tried to do it now. It's still saying it.
I suspect it is some weird kind of clashing issue with SketchUp files. I think it is.
It's not necessarily. It was also the screenshot. I tried to upload the screenshot to. It wasn't. It was saying the same thing as server rejected.
I don't
So
know.
it's not taking the file at all.
What I can say though that worked for other persons that had a similar challenge is ask somebody to upload it for you, because for some reason, I don't know, Google just didn't want to play nice with for some persons files, which is just kind of weird, you know. So that's the best option I can think of. I don't know what it is about the whole server rejected thing. But anyway, so what we have today, we have a little discussion that we want to do today. I want to get that out of
Mr. Williams?
Yeah?
I sent you an email about the form.
Which one of the forms?
The class activity form. You had one of the answers being 2 widths. And I'm not sure if it was an error.
I had one of the answers being
with 2 widths. So you had one with width, and you had another one. So width 18, okay. Width 32, and then you had the other answer with 80, or I don't know. It just kind of, I don't know if it was an issue. I kind of threw
one's supposed to be width and one's supposed to be height.
Right.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay. All right. Let me look into that after we finish today's topic. But thanks for that. second there. All right, but did you manage to get through it?
Yeah, and failed it.
And what?
And failed it.
Don't feel no way, Christina. Do not feel anything.
Because I said answer that there, but anyway, yeah, I got through it.
Okay, well, the key thing is if you understand the concept of working it out. I mean, with this class activity, it's mainly about understanding the concept more than, let's say, the grade, because I don't consider it high risk because it's a part of your participation grade. Our next activity that we're going to do, which is like 25% A grade, that is more like high risk. But the funny thing about this is, as I said, it's because I guess you guys aren't printing as often, but pre-COVID, this was something that you just had to know. And going forward is something that you have to know working in any office to print stuff. So we're going to dedicate a class to work it out, but I want to cover a different topic today rather than working it out for this class. All right. So what I want to look on today is going to be, we're going to continue to look on some of the terminologies that we normally see with whenever we open files on our computer. Let's see. Right. So here is another popular one, I believe. Let's see. So far we looked on DPI, we looked on image size, we also looked on resolution. I hope you guys remember what those are, right? We all remember, right?
Yeah, sir. Yeah.
Hey, guess what? I'm just gonna take your word for it. But another one that comes up is bit depth. And what happened with bit depth is that's a bit of a weird one because it doesn't necessarily affect us. So that is one that we don't really put too much effort in understanding, I would say. And every image that you open on the computer, I'll show you here. Yeah, they're doing some road work near me. So, but I guess you guys aren't hearing that in the background. All right, so any image that you click on. So for example, if I look on this image, which was an image that I looked on earlier in the course, and I go to properties here, and this perhaps is something that we may have done in the past. When you look on properties, we see dimensions, which is just like your resolutions. You see the width and the height. And we know about these things already because we've been working through them. DPI, right? We've done a little talk about DPI and what exactly is DPI, and that we kind of learned the secret behind DPI. You know, you can't really just look on a DPI of an image. You have to consider the things that it is being outputted on. you know, the limit of that, and also how far you are with your output. Here is the next one that we want to look at, bit depth. Kind of just flies under the radar most times, because we don't really do maybe things directly in CSA that we need to consider bit depth. But what happens is that sometimes when certain things happen to us while we are working, it is as a result of bit depth. So I want us to spend a little time to understand a little bit of what bit depth really is. I notice it says bit depth here of 24. And just about all images that you open will say that. Some of them will say that. So for example, let me find another image here. Right, so here is another image. It's a HDR image. And if I look on properties on that, if I can see the properties, yeah, Windows can't detect the properties on this image. It can't even show me the resolution. Everybody see that?
Yeah.
And the reason for that is, this is why bit depth becomes a bit important, is because this is a 16-bit image. Now, 90%, now, more like 99% of all electronic devices will read an 8-bit image. Once you start going up to 16-bit image, some devices can't even display it. So this is when things get a little tricky, because some of us might have an image that is 16-bit and we don't even know. But then what is this whole talk about bit depth in the first place? Like, what is the difference between a 32-bit image and a 8-bit image? And then we have this conversation about bit depth, which is different from bit. So it all becomes so confusing, you know? So I want to spend some time just to kind of iron this out with you guys so you understand what this is. And then so that you can understand some of the effects that you see whenever you manipulate files. Now, I want to show you another image, and this one is a popular image. I might have, give me 1 second here. Right. All right, so let's also look at this image here. And I'm bringing up the properties of this image now. And when I go over to details, let's kind of zoom in. It tells me the dimensions. It also tells me the bit depth. Now, in this case, it doesn't even tell me the DPI, but we can pretty much ignore DPI now because we know this, the true secret behind DPI. So this has a bit depth of 32, right? But it is still an 8-bit image. So let's kind of unravel this whole bit conversation and to see what do these values mean. Now, firstly, we know what a bitmap image is. A bitmap image is an image made up of pixels. We call it a raster image, and it can take different forms. It can be a JPEG, a PNG, but what it is not is a SVG file or a DWG file? Anybody can tell me what kind of files those are? What are those files made up of?
Vectors.
Exactly. Exactly. But a bitmap image is made up of pixels. Now, in its simplest form, a 1-bit image is simply saying that an image can be made up of either black or white. Now, it has a 1-bit color depth because the amount of colors it can display is like 2 to the 1, meaning that it can only display 2 colors, black or white. So most old-time photocopiers was a 1-bit, had a 1-bit color depth. When you scan something on it, I don't know if you notice it, it looked like it can't display grays. It can only display full black or full white. So a lot of times whenever you are printing, and I don't know if you've ever changed the options in a document you're printing to black and white, it simply means that the printer is only going to print as either a black pixel or a white pixel, no gray or in between. So this essentially is a 1-bit color depth, and it is a 1-bit image. Now, most images we look on are 8-bit with a color depth of 24 bits. So let me go back to this. This only has a color depth of 1 because it only can show you 1 color. So let me show you where that 24-bit come from. Now, 99% of all images on the computer, all digital images you will come into contact with are going to be 8-bit images, which means that it is 2 to the power of 8. Now, don't worry, you don't have to do any math here. But all you have to know is that the amount of shades that you can get out of an 8-bit image with an 8-bit color depth is going to be 2 to the 8. That means that any 8-bit color on the computer can give you 256 different shades, right? So what does that mean? Well, you know, you guys know what is a shade already because you did this in like art class, right? You remember when you did like different shades and either you had like, you know, did you ever had to draw that box and every box you go, you shade it in a lighter color? Anybody did that?
Sir.
Right. So that's exactly what the computer is doing. And an 8-bit image can have 256 of those boxes. And 256 is a pretty decent amount of boxes. I mean, if you had to do that in art class, it would just be ridiculous. I mean, maybe you do 4 or 10, but not 256. So basically, every color, every an image like this black and white image here is an 8-bit image. And it has an 8-bit color depth. Now, it is an 8-bit image because it can only have 256 shades. And it has an 8-bit color depth because it only has 1 color channel, meaning it's only black and white. Now, I don't know if you noticed this dialog box, but almost every dialog box you open on the computer has something that looks like this. Anybody ever notice you always see 255 colors?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the reason that you are seeing this, because this 8-bit image, you can only have 255 shades of red, 255 shades of green, and 255 shades of blue. Now, red, green, and blue are what you call primary colors. Who remembers from primary school or prep school? What are primary colors?
If I remember correctly, it's colors that you can't mix to get other colors. Or something
Okay.
like that. You can't mix other colors to get those colors.
Okay, all right. That definition is also correct. Give me another piece of a definition of primary colors. The key piece of information about primary colors.
So they're the foundation of the other colors.
Right, which means that you can use them to achieve every other color. But I don't know if you guys realize, but when you were in, as you grow older, the primary colors kind of evolve, right? Because in prep school, who remember what the primary colors are when you were in prep school or primary school?
In primary school, I think it's red, yellow, and blue.
Aha. But then you go IT and IT tell you, oh wait, there's, red, blue, and green are also primary colors. So what's up with that? But then there's another set of primary colors again. Who can tell me that set? There's another one that you learn about in IT. Well, maybe some of us.
So CMYK.
All right. And what colors are those?
Cyan, magenta, yellow, and I don't know what is.
The last one they call key black, right? So far we have RGB, we have RYB, and we have CMYK. So we have all of these different types of primary colors, and they are indeed primary colors because when you mix them together, they create other colors. Now, the interesting thing about this is there are different technologies that utilize different primary colors. So for example, RGB if you want to utilize the primary color RGB, you have to be using a additive color technology, meaning light. This is why all of your phones and your computer screens use RGB. Why don't they use RYB? And that's because red, yellow, and blue and CMYK are what you call subtractive colors. Now, the reason they are subtractive colors, I'm going to ask you guys, do you do painting in first year still? Of course you do, right?
Yes, sir.
And
yeah, we have our students in first year. Hand
Exactly.
students, so they do painting.
And for those of you who paint, have you ever tried to mix some colors together and, whatever colors you're mixing, and you might mix it and you say, no, this is not quite the color that I want, and you add more color, like maybe you want it more orangish, so you add more orange, and then you say, no, I need it more yellow, and you add more yellow, and then you say, no, I need a little bit of green in there, so you add a little bit of green. Every time you add a bit of color to that paint swab or that blob of paint that you're there mixing, what happens to it? Can anybody tell me their experience for those who have tried painting and mixing colors? Like, why can't you just mix and mix and mix? And if you need more green, just add more green. If you need more yellow, just add more yellow, and you just mix to your heart's content.
Sure, because you're going to replace one plus after growing.
Hold on, go again. You sound a bit low.
You're going to get close and close after growing.
Did you say it gets browny?
You're going to get close and close after growing.
Okay, your signal a little bad. Let's try one more time.
I think she said it will start to turn brown or the colors would get muddy.
Right.
That's what I heard. I'm not sure.
Right. I heard brownie or muddy or some combination of the two. So, indeed, that answer is correct. It's right on the money. Actually, it's almost correct. Now, the reason that the paint starts to get brown or muddy is because every time you add a layer of paint, your color goes towards black. With every layer you add, you are essentially darkening that color. So this is why you can't just continuously mix colors or what you call subtractive colors, because every layer you add gets closer to black. And it's the same with the printer as well as with the paint. Now, the reason that a printer doesn't use red, yellow, and blue is because cyan, magenta, white, and yellow works better with the technology for printing. Right? Because it uses the technology where it kind of sprays little tiny paint particles, and the way how those colors mix together, you just get a better result out of cyan, magenta, and yellow. Now, of course, there's deeper scientific reasons to that, but let's just use that reasoning for now. Now, on the other side of additive colors, RGB, what would happen if you keep mixing colors together? Like, imagine you have a flashlight and you're trying to put a spotlight on something, maybe a model, and you add a blue light, and then maybe you want to add a dark blue light. And every time you keep adding more and more light because you want to mix colors, similarly to how you mix colors when you're painting. What would happen to those? What would happen to the color of the light the more you try to mix additional colors?
It will start to get dim.
And that answer is exactly incorrect.
They'll get brighter still, actually.
What would happen?
They mix and get brighter. It depends on how bright the light themselves are, but they tend to mix and get brighter depending on how intense the light is.
Well, yeah, what you say is mostly correct. And the reason for that is that if you add light on top of light, you just get more light. I mean, there is no way to avoid, if you have a light that is 10 lumens and another light that is 10 lumens, when you add it together, yes, the color will mix, but the result is that you will get a brighter light. So if you keep adding more and more light, then you're going to go towards white. So that's why it's an additive color versus subtractive. So subtractive, the more color you add, it go towards black, and additive, the more color you add, go towards white. Now, the way how the computer shows you color is that it divides it into these different shades, and then it mixes these shades together. Now, because RGB is primary colors, then what you find out happening is that it now has 256 shades of red, 256 shades of green, and 256 shades of blue. Now, if you have red, green, and blue, you can get any color that you can conceive of. And because you have 256 shades starting from black, going all the way to red, starting from black, going all the way to green, and starting from black, going all the way to blue. So you can get virtually any color. And if you want to get white, how would you get white with RGB?
You'd mix all of them.
You mix the brightest value of
each.
Mix the brightest one, yeah. Exactly. So this is what the reason why 99% of all images on your computer is a 8-bit image with 24 is a 24-bit image with an 8-bit color depth. It is a 24-bit image because you have red that has 256 shades, green has 256 shades, and blue has 256 shades. So you basically are adding all of that together. So it's the same as saying that, okay, it's 2 to the 24. So it is a 24-bit image because it adds these shades together. However, at the end of the day, you only have 256 shades of which are used. And this is why it has an 8-bit color depth, because you only have 256 boxes between the blackest value and the brightest value. Only 256. 256. So 256 means that it's only 8-bit. Now, this is where things get interesting, especially if you work with graphics and pixels a lot, right? You can imagine that the more shades you have is the more accurate the color can be. But then you might be saying, you know, who needs more than 256 shades? I mean, any random image that you pull up on the computer, you know, I have a bunch of images here, and whether it is a black and white image like that, or it is a colored image like that, for the most part, 256 shades work just fine. I mean, I can clearly see, you know, I can clearly see all the details in this image. What if it was not 256 shades? So for example, this would be what a 1-bit image would look like. Which is why I don't know if you've ever tried to photocopy a photo on a really old-time photocopier. You notice it looks kind of like this because the photocopier is only maybe 1-bit or 2-bit, right? So a 2-bit image, is only able to show 4 shades of gray. All right, so this becomes important if you were thinking of buying a photocopier for your office and you look on the side and it says, oh, this is a 4-bit photocopy machine. Well, you notice it can only display 4 shades, and then this is what 4 shades would look like. But notice how the value goes up. So a 3-bit image, you know, has 8 shades, and a 4-bit image has 16 shades. Now, the interesting thing is that computers back in the day, like if you remember when you watched that movie about Illustrator and we're looking at the old type of computers were 4-bit. They had 16-bit color depth. And you could actually change your color depth on the computer from 8-bit to 16-bit. And when you move it to 16-bit, it would move a little slower. But of course, those are the past, right? Nowadays, all our computers and devices and phones and projectors and everything are all 8-bit, which means it can show 256 shades. Now, there exist greater bit densities up there, but why is it that we stop at 256? Like, why doesn't, you know, your phone or every device show 10-bit color? As a matter of fact, there are devices that can show 10-bit color. You know, why is it that, but in this case, we're talking about images. So why is it that when you're working in Photoshop, 99% of the time you're working on an 8-bit image? You're not working on a 10-bit image or a 12-bit or a 32-bit image, but they do exist. So the thing to remember with this is that your bit depth or color depth tells you the amount of colors that is found in an image. So when you look again at a random image on the computer and you see that it says it has 24 bit depth, is the same as saying, oh, it's because it have 8 bits for red, 8 bits for blue, and 8 bits for green. And those 8 bits transfer to 256 shades of each. So you guys following me so far, or have I left you behind? Do you understand the concept behind bit depth?
It's following.
Some of us, it's okay if we don't follow it exactly, because there are just some basic things that you would need to know going forward. So for example, for those of us who work with PNG images, so for example, this image that I showed a little earlier, a lot of us go on the internet and we download PNG images like these, and we might place this in our Photoshop, in our architecture's entourage. A PNG image is still an 8-bit image because it has 256 shades, but the difference is it has another channel that's called an alpha channel. And who can tell me what the alpha channel does? Anybody? It has a red channel, a green channel, and a blue channel. We know that those are the primary colors, and those are for mixing the different pixels together to get any color that we want. But it has this additional alpha channel here, which goes from black to white. Anybody can tell me what this channel is for PNG images?
For the transparency, or
and you are exactly correct. It is for transparency. So basically, if you have a 24-bit image, even without looking on the image, and there's a 24-bit image, you know that it does not have transparency, because transparency requires an entire additional 256 shades again to determine how transparent is each pixel. So what we have to do is remember how this works. For example, if I zoom into this little area here, I can see that it is made up of, when I zoom all the way in, like in Photoshop, I can actually see the little pixels which are here. You know, these are all the little pixels. Every one of these pixels have a specific amount of red, a specific amount of green, and a specific amount of blue. So for example, this pixel that I'm highlighting here, maybe it has a low value for red. So out of the 256, maybe it only have a value of 10 for the red. For the green, this is mostly green, so maybe it have a value of, I don't know, 105 for the green. And then maybe for the blue, there's not much blue, so maybe it has 25 for the blue. So every one of these pixels store a certain amount of red, green, and blue that comes together to give you this color. And when you have a PNG image, it has an additional bit of information that tells how transparent is this pixel as well. And that is why PNG images are images that are true PNG images. When you look in the properties, it should say that it is a 8-bit, it may be a 8-bit image, but it must have a 32-bit color depth because it needs an entire new channel just to determine how transparent is this. And then the device that you're viewing it on has to be able to read this channel. So for example, if you have like a really old phone that can only read 24-bit images, then PNG images won't show. Now I want to show you this interesting.
Sir, I have a quick question before you proceed. That the alpha channel, right? That value, is it showing the opacity of the combination of those three, or is it like a scale for the three of them?
Think of it as instructions. You're telling this pixel that this pixel must have X amount of red, X amount of green, X amount of blue. Then this alpha channel is instructing the pixel that this is how transparent you should be.
Oh, it's for the final pixel. Okay, thank you, sir.
Right.
I just wanted to make sure.
For each pixel.
Yes, sir.
So for example, if you look on that image that I showed earlier, for example, this one that is a PNG image, I mean, the image goes all the way. I mean, this is the image. But it's just that the pixel that is here, the alpha channel is telling it that this pixel must be 100% transparent. Right? But what becomes interesting in this image is the edges. So for example, if I open this in Photoshop, if I zoom all the way in, you will see these pixels, right? But where things get interesting, why you can have a PNG image that is nice and cut out very neatly, is if you notice these pixels along the edges, you can see that some of them, I don't know if you can see it on the zoom, but some of them are semi-transparent. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So this is where the alpha channel becomes important, because it says, okay, for this pixel right here, yes, it must have, you know, a value of red, green, and blue, but your transparency must be X, right? And that is what controls how nicely the edges are cut in a PNG image. Now, just to let you guys know what is out there, this image here is a 48. You can have a images that has a 16-bit color depth. Now, if you remember color depth, we're only talking about having 256 shades. 256 shades of red, green, blue, and green will give you approximately 16 million possible colors. Right? Like if you can conceive in your head, like if you ask me, what is the color of this piece of cloth? You might say, oh, it's red, blue, oh, it's green, blue, oh, it's eggshell, oh, you know. So imagine you're doing that. Every possible shade that can be conceived from a 24-bit image with an 8-bit color depth will give you 16 million possible colors. Now, the human eye sees about up to 10 million colors. And this is why 256, you know, or 8-bit is perfectly fine, because your human eye can only see 10 million colors anyway. So for example, I may show you something that looks green, and you look at it and say, oh, it's the same shade green, when in fact, it is slightly different by 0.00 whatever. But the human eye only sees green. But if you plug it in the computer, it gives you two different values. So there are things happening that the human eye can't see. But because our eyes can only pick up 10 million colors, well, there's no need to go beyond that 8-bit image. But nevertheless, there are images that are 16-bit. And you might say, oh, well, that's kind of crazy because a 16-bit image means that it's 2 to the 16. That means that there is 281 trillion possible colors. I mean, that's just, you can't even conceive that. Like, you know. But why would you need an image that has 16-bit, you might say? I mean, if you were doing some photo editing and somebody say, do you want an 8-bit image or a 16-bit image? You might choose 16 because you might say, well, 16 higher than 8, so it should be fine. But then you might look at it and say, oh, but these images look the same. So for example, this is an 8-bit image. Everybody see that? And this is a 16-bit image. And when I say 16-bit, we have to define it. 16-bit color depth, right? So let's see if I can put it side by side or something. Okay, you guys can see this image, right? These two images.
Yes, sir.
Now, both of them are the same resolution, right? And we know what resolution is, right? That is just the amount of pixels contained in the image. So they contain the same amount of squares. But nevertheless, one is 16-bit and one is an 8-bit. Now, remember what we said earlier. The human eye can't see more than 8-bit. But the computer eye can see more than 8-bit. As a matter of fact, the computer can see all 281 trillion colors. So what does that mean for us that edit? Well, if I should use, so if I should adjust the exposure of our 8-bit image, and watch closely what happens. So this is our 8-bit image here. So we can make the image brighter, or we can make it darker. But if I take this 16-bit image here, and let's adjust the exposure on that. Duller and brighter. What do you notice happens?
The colors seem more muted instead of going straight to black or straight to white.
Exactly. And the reason for this is that if I should brighten this, all we're seeing is white because that's all our eyes can conceive. But the eyes of the computer is, that information is still there. And this is called dynamic range. And this is why you would buy a camera that has what you call a high dynamic range. The amount of, it can capture more information than you can see with your naked eye. So even though you can't see the sun in this image, the fact is that it is indeed there. And when you adjust the exposure, that's when you see it. But then when you look on the 8-bit image now, and you adjust the brightness, it has no dynamic range. The entire image just gets more dim. So,
sir, it's kind of making sense to me why they prefer, for example, like an OLED monitor for graphic design versus an LCD monitor, because they say OLED is supposed to produce true colors versus LCD, as in it has a wider range of colors now. It's making more sense based on what you're saying to me now.
Right, and that will come in, that we're going to look at that next, right? But remember that the things that we're talking about here is just related to a file, meaning you have a picture on your computer. Is it a 16-bit image? Is it an image with 16-bit color depth or an image with an 8-bit color depth? Right? 8-bit color depth, it means it have 256 possible shades. Now, the more shades it have, so for example, if I try to open this 16-bit image on my phone, it wouldn't work because the phone, how you put it now, the eyes in the phone, or the capabilities of the phone isn't capable of deciphering between 21 trillion colors. So it probably wouldn't read it. And in a way, Photoshop is still only showing you 256 colors at a time, but it is adjusting it on a scale. So for example, I'm seeing 256 shades here, and I'm also seeing 256 here, but I'm able to gain more out of it because I have 16,000 possible shades, and I'm only seeing 256 of it at any given time, right? If I try to see all of the shades, it's just going to come out as white, you know. But anyway, so this is a 16-bit image. Now, if you are, for example, doing editing, let's say that you're going to do photo editing. If you remember when we did exercise 1, when we started to cut the sky background and we started to warp the car, you guys remember that, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, I don't know if you had noticed, but every time you warp or edit an image, the image actually loses fidelity. Think of it like, I don't know, like if you've ever had a splinter that run up into your hand and then you have to try to use like a needle to pick it out. The longer you stay there picking at your skin is the more your skin becomes agitated, the more painful it becomes. I mean, if you're there picking forever, then if your finger just gonna hurt you, versus if you just pick it out really quickly. So it's a kind of similar thing when it comes to image editing. The more you cut and stretch and skew and edit an image, the more color you will lose, the more pixels you would lose, the more fidelity you will lose. So this is why when you are editing images, you want to edit with images that have a high resolution, a large number of pixels relative to what you are displaying it on, and also a large amount of color depth. Because the more you mess with the image, the more you're going to kind of mess up the color. And if you're starting with 16,000 possible shades of color, then you're good. But if you're starting with 256, the colors and the pixels and everything going to get destroyed, or the fidelity would be lost the more you edit. So this is why you would want to know about a 16-bit color depth, because if you can edit, you would edit that. But if you are passing that image for somebody to show on a projector or a phone or the internet, you wouldn't need to give them an image that has 65,000 possible shades. It just, chances are it just won't even work on whatever device you put it on, right? Now, this is the reason in the question that you ask about the monitors, as we kind of wind down now, the question you ask about the monitors, this is the reason why most monitors that exist are only really go between 8 to 10, because your eyes can only see 10 million colors anyway. So even if you have a monitor that can show you that has a greater color depth, you're not really going to see it. I mean, you know, not really. So this kind of leads me into the whole thing with monitors, because just because you have an image that has all of this color information, it doesn't mean that your monitor is showing it correctly. How many of you have ever put your laptop beside your friend's laptop and noticed that the image that you show looks different on a different monitor?
I have.
Yeah, sir. It's a lot different from how the phone will show the same picture.
Exactly. And this is where we come to color calibration. Now, color calibration is a whole like science in itself, but the general idea behind it is that different monitors are manufactured with the ability to show different ranges of color, right? So the file on your computer has color information in that file, but then what you're seeing on the monitor is determined by how much colors can your monitor display, right? So the summary of all of this is that when you go to purchase a computer or a monitor, you might notice that some monitors are branded as this monitor for designers, or this is an OLED monitor versus an LCD monitor. And the reason for that is that OLED monitors are able to give you a wider range of color. Now, this funny little shaped diagram, what it is showing is that here, it is showing you this is all the possible colors that exist on planet Earth. You know, let's just keep it at that. Right? All of the possible colors that exist. Now, the average monitor that you buy, chances are is going to be sRGB. So you're going to buy a regular old LCD panel, you're getting sRGB, and sRGB will show you this amount of green. Let me see if I can point that out to you. It will show you this amount of green. It will show you this amount of blues and this amount of red. Right? I don't know if you can kind of see what I'm highlighting there. Maybe I should use a blue marker or something. All right, you guys can see that? So this is when you go and buy a regular monitor. But then if you might see a monitor that is selling and it say, oh, this is Adobe RGB certified. Well, what does this mean? That means that you can show a greater degree of depth in your green. For the blues, it's round about the same. But for the reds, it can show a greater degree of depth in the reds. So this is where the whole OLED and these things come along, because an OLED monitor can show deeper blacks. That is the main marketing thing that it sells with. So when the monitor is showing a black screen, it doesn't look like gray. But more importantly, the reason why an image looks much nicer on a, for example, an Apple display that has retina, that's what Apple calls it, or an OLED TV, is because it is able to show a higher degree of color. And the way how you determine that color, the standard that you use is color gamut. So for example, for architecture, it doesn't necessarily matter if you're drawing, because we're not that concerned about color when we're drawing. So you guys don't have to like go out and buy like OLED monitors or an OLED laptop. But if you were doing graphic design, where we spoke about a few classes ago, where you had a company like Clara and a company like Digicel, and both of them have very close reds, but they're not the same reds. Well, if you're using a computer that has a sRGB, you probably wouldn't be able to tell. You don't know what red is Digicel from what red is Clara, because the monitor isn't able to go that deep into showing color. So, for example, myself, that is in visualization. This information matters to me because I'm dealing with rendering and color and all that stuff. So I would want to have an OLED monitor so that I know that the red that I'm seeing here, what type of red it is. The average computer monitor really, and your TV and all of that, can really only show within this range right here. You know, so you realize that you lose a lot of the greens. This is why an OLED monitor will look so rich when you look on like all trees and nature. It just looks like it wants to jump out of the screen at you because it can show a more richer or a higher degree of greens and a higher degree of reds. But when you look at it on your regular monitor, it look, you know, the trees still look green, but it doesn't look as rich. So that is what these things are. And that is our basic conversation of color. At the end of the day, when you guys go to buy your monitors or your laptop and it says sRGB on it, or something might say Adobe RGB, and you might want to wondering, what am I paying for? Or it might say DCI P-P3, you might say, what am I paying for? Well, this is what you're paying for. You might see this little diagram somewhere in the marketing material, and just know that you'll have a wider spectrum of color that the monitor can display. All right. Okay, so that is really our discussion on color. I know that it contains a bit of technical information, and some of you may not necessarily remember this, but guess what? Whenever you go in Photoshop, right? I'm going to end with this note. A lot of us go into Photoshop and if, for example, this 32-bit image that I showed you here, and when we did the exercise recently where we went and we added things like filter effects and all of that, if I try to add a filter effect to this 32-bit image, what you will notice is that most of them are all grayed out, right? Some of them are grayed out here. And basically, whenever you go to edit an image, and for example, some of the options are grayed out, you should look in your Photoshop to make sure that you are editing a 8-bit color depth image, because most of the features of Photoshop will only work with an 8-bit color depth. So the more colors you can display, the less Photoshop, or rather the more stress it puts on your computer, and the less Photoshop can work with that image, right? So a lot of times you might get an image that is maybe 16-bit and you can't like this image here. What you'd have to do is go to image mode, and then you'll have to change it to 8-bit. And when you change it to 8-bit, you will notice that it's going to say, well, just notice if you change it to 8-bit, you're essentially throwing away all those additional colors, all that additional information, and the image is going to get flat. So if you're okay with that, then that's fine, and you will do that. And now if you try to like adjust the exposure and all of that, it's not going to be as before, because all of that information is now thrown out. But now you can be able to add all of these effects to your image here. Okay, guys, so that is our talk on color and bit depth. I hope that some of this information will be useful, and sometime in the future when something isn't working, something will click and you say, "Oh right, I remember sir talk about this." All right, guys.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I will see you again on Wednesday when we're gonna see if we can go through the class activity, so we can work out the answers for everyone to see. And we're also going to do some other exciting stuff. All right, guys. So I will see you on Wednesday.
Question: should we have any new softwares for Wednesday?
Nope. No. Well,
Okay.
we're going to be using InDesign, but not
Okay.
this Wednesday though. But
Okay.
maybe like in a couple of weeks, so you can get that in the meantime.
Okay.
Right. But other than that, we might use SketchUp, so just have all your regular programs installed, and we'll have some fun. All right, guys.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah.
I have a question. Do you have a submission for exercise 3 for Yanagil Mackenzie? Like,
For
if you-
Mackenzie?
yes.
Okay, I'm checking. For those guys who have to go, you can go. Classes officially done. Oh, by the way, guys, I guess some of you would have noticed that there are some new class recordings that are posted. So go ahead and take a look on the website on the class recordings. I believe that I have now everything uploaded to last class. All right. So if there's anything that you need to go over, you can do that. Okay.
Sir, are you seeing my submission for I believe it's exercise 4. I had made Daniel submit it on my behalf.
All right. As long as you don't get that weird error about server rejected file, then you should feel pretty confident that I would get it. But I'm still checking. Just give me a minute here. All right. You said for Mackenzie, right?
Yes, sir. Exercise 3.
Yeah, man, it's there. It's just it's not marked yet because I got it after I had marked for that assignment.
Okay, no problem. Thanks,
Right.
sir.
No problem. So guys, if you're not seeing, as long as you didn't get a server error, if you're not seeing your grade, chances are it's just because it came in after I marked. So if you submitted it after I marked, that's what you will get until I go back to mark those new ones again. All right.
Yes, sir. Enjoy the rest
Yes,
of
sir.
the day.
Okay,
Sir, I have this issue.
Mm.
And when I go to the whiteboard, it keeps telling me that I have view only privileges or something like that.
Right, that is correct because the whiteboard is not up for editing currently.
All right. I
Right.
thought it was something just on my end.
Yeah, no, that's just how it. Sometimes we open it for editing and sometimes not.
Okay, thanks.
All right, no problem. Okay, guys. Take care.